Hello, today you will be learning about how to write an appropriate paragraph for senior year. I call this writing off to the races. Off to the races is an expression that means you're on your way, you're ready to win. And races is an acronym for paragraphs. So RACES stands for restate, answer the question, cite the evidence, explain the support, and sum it up. All of these are essential in a paragraph. Restating means you're going to read the question or the prompt the teacher gives you and write a topic sentence explaining what you're going to write about. Answering the question means that you are going to answer the prompt itself, and that comes as number 2 in a paragraph. Be sure to look for what it's asking. Does it ask who did something, what happened, where did it happen, why, or how did it happen? Looking for these words will change your answer. Next, you're going to cite evidence that supports your answer. The more support and explanation you give your answer, the stronger it is. So you're going to provide evidence to support it. It can be a quote, a paraphrase, summarized learning from a passage or story. It can also be your own personal explanation of what's going on in the story and what it means. But you do need to explain it. This is the longest part of the paragraph. Explain how the evidence supports your answer. Explain what the citation means, why it's an important citation. Be sure to add any implications. What is that author really trying to tell you? What are they hinting at? And then, of course, any conclusions you can make about what you think the author's point is. Finally, again, in any paragraph, you have to summarize it. It's a conclusion sentence. So you're going to summarize your paragraph with one sentence that relates to your answer. Everything you write has to relate to your answer. Next, I am going to give you an example from a story we will read later in the quarter. It is called Swimming Upstream. The prompt you'll be given says, does the way Anna May handles watching the salmon go upstream show that she can bounce back and adapt, or does it seem like in the end she is struggling to cope? The first thing in my paragraph, I have to restate the prompt with a topic sentence that will show people what direction my paragraph is going to go in. So I said, when going through life, there are ups and downs. People must survive both the good and bad while continuing to succeed. If you notice here, I wrote about ups and downs. I wrote about surviving both the good and bad while continuing to succeed. In other words, I chose this part of the prompt, that she's going to be able to bounce back and adapt. Now I need to answer the actual question. Does the way Anna May handle watching the salmon go upstream show that she can bounce back and adapt? So this is how I answered it. Anna May was at her lowest point. Okay, so she had a reason to bounce back. Anna May was at her lowest point. The way the author shows Anna May watching and rooting for the struggling salmon to swim upstream when she is at her lowest point, ready to drink again and ready to give up, shows that Anna May realizes that she can make it no matter how hard it becomes. In other words, she can bounce back from her lowest point and adapt and make it, just like the salmon did. However, this answer, well, good, needs support, because people will not understand if you don't support it with evidence from the text of some type. So I went ahead and wrote, Anna May verbalized or spoke out loud the desire for the salmon to survive and to make it through the rushing water. In the text, it states, she rocked, she shouted, make it, damn it, make it. Torn fin waited at the dam. So not only did I put my own words of what I thought was happening in here, based on the story, but I also went ahead and put a quote that kind of proves that she was rooting for the fish and therefore rooting for herself. As a writer, though, I need to be able to explain this citation in words. So the evidence, as I said, supports my answer because it shows she was rooting for the fish to make it. After the fish makes it, she gets up and goes home knowing she can survive. She knows this because the fish survived. She left her bottle of wine and drives home to her future, hearing the water in her ears. The author used the fish swimming upstream against the water to show that Anna May can make it too, even if she has to work hard. Anna May showed resilience and growth using this mindset. So far, so good. I have explained it. Now I need to sum it up, and it all needs to be related to this answer of the question. So the salmon struggle to swim upstream reminds Anna May that even through life struggles can seem unsurmountable. If she keeps going, she can make it through tough times and survive. So I summed up the entire meaning behind my answer. So where do we go from here? Because in the beginning of class, I will be giving you this box to write in, but eventually you won't have this box. You'll have memorized the prompt, restate, answer the question, cite the evidence, explain the support, and sum it up as a good senior paragraph. So how do we take it from here and put it onto a Word document? Well, you're going to select everything that you wrote. So everything on the right side. And you're going to select it. You will then push copy to ensure that you have the entire part of what you wrote. And you are going to take it and paste it to your own document. Notice that it doesn't paste like a paragraph yet. It still pastes as if it's in boxes, and that's okay. Now, when you do paste it, you need to make sure that you're not clicking Control V. You need to go to the right click and click A if it has one, or you can click Keep Text Only if that's what yours says, or Paste Text Only. Depending on the version of Word you have, it will change. The reason you're doing this is to get rid of these boxes. So when you paste it to the paper, you don't need the boxes. Okay? In fact, they will hinder you. Now, after you have pasted it correctly, it should look similar to this. So you are going to make it now look like a paragraph. How do we do that? Well, you're going to take the second sentence and you're going to bump it up to succeed, where the period is. So it will say, when going through life, there are ups and downs. People must survive, both good and bad, while continuing to succeed, period. Anna May was at her lowest point. The author shows blah, blah, blah. So you're going to keep doing that. I'm going to take the third sentence and put it next to the word becomes, and the fourth sentence next to the citation, and so forth, so that they all go together, eventually looking like a paragraph. Okay, after you get everything on there, it is rare that your paragraph will be perfect. So you need to do a couple of things. The first thing you need to do is highlight it and change the paragraph to Times New Roman. The best way to do this is just to put TI and it will come up, Times New Roman. Okay, so then you're going to switch over here and you're going to change that to 12 and then push enter. It changes the paragraph to the correct font and size. Okay, After you have finished that, you are going to go in and edit your paper. And to do this, you're going to go all the way to review on the top bar, and then you're going to look for a word that says editor. My particular editor says ABC spelling because I am working on an older version of Word. Yours will probably have what looks like a fountain pen, a blue fountain pen, and it says the word editor. So I'm going to click this right here. I've changed this before, so I need to change it kind of back so that it shows you how to work the editor. So if I click this, it's going to say, because I changed it, oh my goodness, I changed it correctly. So if I click this now, it's going to come up with spelling and it's going to tell you what the words are. If you disagree with the change, you're going to push ignore once. If you agree with the change, push change. Just know that most of the time it knows what it's talking about. Read through it to make sure, because you are the one responsible for getting it right. Once you have everything changed, it will quit, and then you're going to take your lovely little paragraph and you are going to leave it as is, except you're going to push the tab button off to the left of your keyboard, and it will create 5 spaces in next to the first sentence, which is exactly what you do. You always indent a paragraph. Okay, once you have it complete and it's on your Word document, there is only one thing left to do, and that is go back to the upper bar right here, and you are going to go to home, and you're going to select your whole paragraph, and you're going to go up here to where you see the up down arrow, and you are going to make sure that it says 2.0. This is called double spacing. So if you ever hear that, double space your paper, that's what this means. You're double spacing it, 2.0. Okay? And it's common in English and other classes to do that. It makes it easier for the teacher to read, it makes it easier to edit, and so forth. So once you have this finished, the only thing left is to come up with a title that makes sense. So if I go back to the question about whether or not she bounces back and adapts, or she is struggling to cope, I went ahead and thought she really had to make a decision here in her life based on the story, based on what I chose to write. So I named it Anna May's Decision. Your title should have something to do with what you wrote. It gives the idea to the reader what they're going to actually write about or read about. Okay, that's it. You have a great day.